It's not in the face! Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Hey, Not the Face with your host, John Nash, and your producer, me, Steffi Haynes. And guess what today is? It is Hodgepodge Day, and we've got a whole soiree full of topics for you. It's a little party up in here. We're going to talk about Dana White and Power Slap. We're going to talk a little bit about the GFL. We're going to talk some Eddie Hearn, maybe a little bit of Tank Davis and Lamont Roach. We have a listener question. We have a retro question. But before we get into all that, I would like to entreaty you to please subscribe so that you have access to our bonus content and so that we can continue buying groceries when the tariffs hit tomorrow or today. As you're listening, they should have hit today. Now, let's check in with John and see how his week has been.
The week is fine. It's been good, except I'm on pins and needles about the tariffs tomorrow and watching I should probably have put all my money into Bitcoin, but I did. No, I didn't do that. But no, I'm just spending time. I spent the whole weekend reading on. I watched the pay-per-view over the weekend of Davis versus Roach. So there's a busy period after that where you're consuming all the information on that fight. So
There's a lot of hot takes out there too.
Yeah, I have a lot of criticism, especially for the ref Steve Wills. But there, as everybody listens to this and everybody on Twitter probably knows, there's a select group of people that really hate PBC, and boy, they got to be insufferable right now. I bet you.
Oh, you know it. And you know who else is probably insufferable right now? Turkey. Because, Gervonta has spoken out against him and the Saudi regime for quite some time. Ever since Turkey sort of inserted himself into boxing a few years ago, Gervonta has been very vocal against him. So I imagine he's over there clucking quite a bit.
Oh yeah. I bet you. In fact, I know he made some tweets and stuff. But this is something that got me too. Is now I thought Steve Wills, that was just a god awful call from him not to call call him down, a knockdown. Just changed the whole fight right there. Right, terrible call. One of the worst I've ever seen. But I noticed so many people were up in arms in that. Much more than up in arms than when Turkey went to the corner to apparently tell a boxer's corner what the scorecard was, how far he's down. I mean, I know, people, boxing's fixed and all that stuff. There's no evidence. It's possible, but there's no evidence that Steve Wills was working on behalf of PBC. That's just an old boxing trope. It's possible, but there's also no evidence. But we did see Turki Al-Sheikh go to the corner and relay information that neither fighter should have. So that was
last week, though, in last week's card that happened, right?
Yeah, that was during the was it last week or 2 weeks ago?
It was like 2 weeks ago.
Bivol versus Beterbiev.
Yes, that was when he did that.
Ames
Not
fight.
last night. I just want to make sure that we put that out for our listeners.
Oh, yeah,
we are referring to a different night of fights.
Yes. So it was, but that was, just as noteworthy and just as outrageous, I thought. And, it did not seem to raise as many people, didn't get people worked up about it. So. Anyway, that's just my observation. Anyway, I thought just to say I thought the fight Tank versus Roach was a lot more entertaining than I thought it would be, although disappointing in the call at the end.
Now, while we're on this topic, do we have any rumors on purses, on gates, any of the business information that you specialize in?
Well, the gate officially, I think there's someone, I don't know if it's an official gate number, but it was reported it was over 7 million. I thought it'd be higher. Boxing tickets, or I can't remember his handle who does that. I think he reported that that the gate numbers might be higher, but it looked sold out. It was over 7 million, which is still a pretty sizable gate for the opponent because there wasn't a ton of demand to see see Tank versus Roach, but obviously shows Tank's the demand that Tank has at the Barclays Center that he could draw 7 million. On purses, I haven't heard anything. I mean, we know Tank is probably making millions. I have no clue what the pay-per-view buys were, but he is both fighters obviously made millions. How many millions is the question, but I haven't heard anything yet.
And one final question on this Tank fight. Do you think that if they had scored that as a knockdown, that Tank would have won or lost?
I mean, I think he would have lost because there's only 3 rounds left. It was the 9th. Tank, you can't say what Tank would have done. Maybe he would have turned it up. Maybe, possibly he would have knocked him out. But I didn't think Tank was really threatening Roach the entire fight. So I doubt he would knock him out. In fact, he caught Roach a couple times and Roach's chin held up. So I think if they scored it a knockdown, I mean, if you look at the scores they gave, that's a 2-point turnaround. That's matters what the score is. But suddenly it's an automatic 10-8 round. I remember one card at least one judge gave it to Tank that round, so that becomes suddenly Tank's down 2 points and Roach gains a point. The other I can't remember if the others were 10-9s for I think 10. I think two of them were 10-9 for Tank and one was 10-9 for Roach. But otherwise you add it up together. And it makes basically for 2 of the scorecards, it's almost insurmountable for Tank to win. He would have to win at least 2 of the rounds to get a draw. Well, there wouldn't be a draw at all because we had a point deduction, but get a draw, you'd have to get a knockdown or something. So I think that really decided the fight. That was we don't have an alternate reality, a window where we can see an alternate reality. There's no counterfactual to look at and say this is exactly what had happened. Again, Tank might have turned it up a lot if he knew he lost a point because he was as a knockdown, but just what I saw, statistical odds, you'd have to say overwhelming chance that Roach would have won that fight if they scored it for a knockdown.
All right, let's jump into some power slap news. I know everybody's been chomping at the bit to know every little detail about power slap. So we're here to give y'all a few extras. So V-Chain just announced a very big deal with Power Slap. What can you tell us about that deal?
No one can see me, but I'm doing the hands over the eyes that the ambassador from Ukraine was doing during the press conference last week. Power Slap. God damn it. What can I tell you? Well, first of all, V-Chain is the official blockchain of the UFC. If people remember that, it is a deal that is going to replace a large part of the revenue that they are losing now because Power Slap is leaving Rumble and going to YouTube because that's the place where all the big promotions go now. Looking at you, Combate Global. So that's where all the big places because they want to have control of their product. That's Dana White said, which okay. You went from being a network, a cable channel to Rumble, and now YouTube. It does the arc. I'm not liking this arc, but anyways, V-Chain is the official sponsor. They signed a 5-year, $76 million deal. So basically $12.5 million a year. And that's going to make up for some of the lost revenue from Rumble, who apparently was paying $30 million a year which that's what they claim. And I just, again, doing my hands are across my eyes, rubbing my throbbing temples right now because I just can't, I find that impossible to believe. According to Dana White, according to the article from Forbes, Power Slap made $50 million last year on 5 events. 5 plus, so 5, that's 10 million an event. That's better than almost any other MMA promotion out there besides UFC has done. I'm flummoxed. There's more question than there's possible answers on that.
Let's talk a little bit about Power Slap and how it's going to be packaged because they touched on that a little bit. When they made the announcement for the Australia card that's coming up, can you talk a little bit about the packaging of Power Slap now?
I'm a little confused by what you mean patching and the Australia card. You mean as part of the deals that they're doing with the UFC?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that's a big part of their plans is they're bundling it with the UFC and WWE as part of these package deals. As you know, the third, though it looks like PBR, professional bull riding, might be taking their place because that's the big one in St. Louis or Kansas City? I can't remember. They announced in April, 3 nights, and so that's taking the place of what I imagine Power Slap would have been. So that's a big part of their deal. They're trying to bundle themselves in. I should note too, and again, Forbes said this, Power Slap apparently has, or Dana White said this, I believe in the interviews quoted at least, that they have site fee deals from Saudi Arabia, $15 million an event. I think that has to be a misquote. There's no way they're getting that much money per event. Power Slap. So if that's true, Again, doing my fingers or across my temples. I can't believe this shit. But they are bundling it with the UFC. So, which is interesting because Power Slap is not under the TKO umbrella. It's owned by Dana White. It's owned by the Fertittas and Pilgrim. 10% they confirmed is owned by Endeavor, other executives. So in fact, if I was a shareholder at the UFC, I'd be a little nervous about this, that you're putting so much energy in Power Slap. But about their bundling deals, yes, they're using the leverage they have. They're using the UFC and the UFC brand and TKO brand to sell Power Slap because I don't think there's the interest is as organic as they try to present it as.
Dana White says he's negotiating 2 other sponsorship deals. Now, this is going to be a twofold question because, one, I want to know if you think that he's actually doing the negotiating himself. And 2, do we have any details at all on these next deals? Like how much or with who, whatever?
Yeah, I have no idea what the deals are. I will say that I have some suspicions. What they might be. Mark Shapiro, the COO of TKO, was at the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference on Monday morning, and he was talking about that they are working on some big sponsorship deals for the UFC. So my guess is perhaps that some of those big deals are going to blow our mind, that the UFC is working on sponsorship, that they're roping them in to be the Power Slap sponsors. Because if you know, it's VeChain, their big new sponsor, is the official blockchain of the UFC. So I'm not sure VeChain is that interested in sponsoring Power Slap. I think they might be roped in because they're trying to get in good with the TKO entities that they also sponsor. But whatever the sponsors are, when they put them together, supposedly the new sponsorship deal, and I guess they said it was going to be $35 million. Now, did he mean that's going to be $35 million for the 2 new sponsors? I think it was $35 million for them plus VeChain. That's how I read it. But even then, 3 sponsorship deals totaling $35 million per year, which covers almost all the money that they lost from that they're going to lose from being on Rumble. Actually, they gained all the money back. Rumble was paying them $30 million supposedly. They recouped all of it with these sponsorship deals. That's good for them, I guess. But again, rubbing my temples because I have no clue where the interest is, where the market is for Power Slap.
How long do you think Power Slap sticks around?
I mean, I'm gonna have to say a little while. They're putting effort into it. I mean, if they're making $30 to $50 million per year on 5 events around that per year, it's making money because that shit doesn't cost anything. They're not paying the slappers or whatever the hell they're called much. It's making money, but obviously they're trying to flip it as a massive entity, the next UFC, and sell it for like $1 billion or something. But you look at the trajectory as it came out. Again, it was TBS. It was originally on. It had a prime spot on that with a reality show and TBS pulled. And after Dana White's slapping his wife, they pulled interest from it. They no longer broadcast it. Moved to Rumble. Rumble has a much lower footprint than TBS, but they paid a license fee for it, and now they lost that, and they're moving on to YouTube, where they're not getting any license fee. They're just one of a billion other shows on YouTube. That is not the trajectory of to me, a fast-growing sport, as much as they claim it is.
Now, when I was looking for stuff on this Power Slap thing, I couldn't help but notice in the comments underneath, there was an account that posted a lot of information, a Jedi Goodman, for those of you out there that want to know and want to follow. And I looked in the comments and I couldn't help but notice several people saying that Power Slap has to be a money laundering front. How would you explain that this isn't actually the case?
Well, I think it's obvious. It's much more along the lines of a pump and dump and a rug pull that we see in cryptocurrency and stuff, meme coins. That's at least what my guess would have it much more like, because there's no, the money laundering would be, what are they, the UFC, whoever's doing the money laundering, Dana White owns Power Slap. He's not pumping his illegal gain money into there for any reason, right? So what would be the money laundering? There is no money laundering. I think it's much more likely they're using the leverage, the renowned Dana White's fame, his position and platform that he has with the UFC, the connections Endeavor has and Dana White has with podcasters. They know it. They get tons of podcasters, influencers, I should say, to promote Power Slap and their cost of doing this is like $25,000 a show. So they're not paying the influencers. They're giving them tickets and stuff where Dana White will be on the show, but they're getting massive amounts of free publicity, very little marketing they spend. So they're leveraging that. They're leveraging the access they have to sponsors. Now the sponsorships want to keep them happy, or Rumble wants to keep them happy in connection to the conservative, movement, because UFC and Dana White are conservative coded now. So they're taking advantage of all this stuff to build up Power Slap as this next big thing. So that's not money laundering. That's just, that's just pumping the price of the entity up. Now, when someone else maybe acquires it from them, that's when you'll find out really what the true value of Power Slap is. And I got a feeling it's not nearly as high as they claim it's going to be.
All right. So you talked about Mark Shapiro just a moment ago. He was at this Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom conference. Did he give any hints about the UFC's broadcast future?
He did, actually. It was interesting because they asked, what's the future of the broadcast? And he pointed out that for the UFC, one thing he pointed out is they have the two things they're weighing. One is the amount of money being offered, and also the exposure, because they don't want to be on a platform that's going to shrink their audience. And then the next time they go to a deal that they're in trouble, they want a platform that has reach. They noted Netflix has tremendous reach, can really market, same as ESPN. So they talked about that, so Netflix got a lot of praise on it. So I think Netflix does seem maybe what they're going towards. But it's interesting is people were talking about $1 billion price tag for the UFC. This $1 billion price tag has been thrown around. And then recently another, I can't remember who it was, what was their name? I can't remember the analyst's name, but it was, they offered it. They said 900 million would probably be the price they would get for it. That was their estimate would be, which is tremendous still, because right now their total for their pay-per-views and their broadcasts are 550 million. So they're talking about the combined, their total media, domestic market would be 900 million. That'd be tremendous. But he kind of hinted, or at least didn't even hint. They talked about that those numbers are just being thrown around. Those are guesses, and it sounded like Shapiro was basically confirming or trying to get expectations lower, that the number might not be as high as some people imagine it will be. So again, I think they want to stay nice to ESPN, although I don't know how much interest ESPN has on it when you look at some of the other entities they're dropping in the sports entities they're dropping. But they're still hyping Netflix and Amazon as the future that they want a lot. But I'm not sure from, just reading between the lines, it sounds like the numbers that were thrown on before might be a little higher than what's really going to be offered to them, or what they expect now.
Now, part of that conversation that Shapiro was having revolved around the apex. And I couldn't help but notice Damon Martin and you were talking, and then other people were jumping in the conversation. And somebody made a suggestion that they expand the apex to hold more people, and that they have like midweek cards that only had like 5 fights on them to, make the apex seem like it's more happening than it is already. And Damon Martin said something that caught my eye. He talked about exhausting the ticket market in Vegas. Now, I know what that is and you know what that is, but I bet a lot of people out there don't know what that means. So would you mind explaining the concept? And also tell us if the UFC actually needs to worry about that. To access the bonus content of this episode, you must be a paid subscriber. To do that, go to heynottheface.substack.com and subscribe today.
Ow! Ow! Not the face! Ooh! Ooh! Okay, the face!